Hello, everyone. How y'all doing?
Hello.
I didn't think of like a last minute interesting question to ask y'all. I will have to leave it to the end. Um, but how you doing, Ace and ALR? How y'all feeling?
What's up? I'm good.
I'm good. I'm representing Nigeria today because we're playing in the AFCON. That's the African Cup of Nations football tournament.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'm
Who
excited.
are y'all playing against?
Against Angola.
Angola? Ooh,
Yep.
okay. I hope y'all win. Good luck. All
Thank you.
right.
I like that. I'm always representing my Boston Red Sox over here,
Let's
as seen on the
Oh,
go.
license plate
nice.
in Massachusetts. Gee, I just caught the this year's schedule, and they are coming to see me in LA for LA's home opener. So I was real honored. That's gonna be good.
That is cool.
Yeah,
Now they're coming to see you, especially. I used to I
yeah.
used to watch all the Red Sox games when I was little. Like I will always go to the games. But man, the games are like really long. Like I don't know if I have like the attention
They're
span.
shorter now. They put a pitch
Oh,
clock on there, like a
oh,
basketball
they
shot
did?
clock. Yeah, yeah. You better get
Oh,
your drinks by the time the seventh inning rolls around, or else you're gonna miss it.
oh, thank God they needed that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, all right, y'all. So for people who are viewing, I did try to someone said any Super Bowl picks. Oh, that's a good question. I used to be in I am in a fantasy football group and I've been in it for a couple years, but this year I kind of didn't pay attention to my
Mm.
groups or anything because I was busy. But yeah, I don't know. What about you, Rocks? Any Super Bowl picks for you? I'm like I know the last time I watched football was Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Like I think it was last week or something like that, and I was hoping Lamar Jackson would win. But that's all my sports knowledge. What about y'all? Do y'all watch football or anything?
I do not follow the Super Bowl, so I'm just gonna step back here.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, as like a true Massachusetts jerk, the New England Patriots are not in the Super Bowl this year, but I still think they have a good chance of winning it. It could happen. Like,
Yeah, we do. Even though we're there's so much going on, like we don't have the same coach anymore and all that. But okay, y'all. So you if you tuned in, maybe you were expecting a different stream. I tried to update all the places to say that we're not talking about why Will hates passwords anymore, even though I thought that was hilarious. But um what I am really interested in or really excited about is we're going to talk a little bit about the Web5 Kotlin SDK. We're going to talk about like our open source strategy and all that, which is really exciting because we have ALR here who is I just looked at your title. It says Result Ace Fanboy, who is the head of open source programs. And he's also like, I think you're like a Java champion, right? Or something like that. You and
Angie is a Java champion. I'm a Java champion wannabe for certain.
Oh, I thought
They,
you both were.
they better be paying attention. I have books. I got back when they wrote the thick ones, these things. What's up,
Oh wow,
champion
Plastic.
committee?
that's still in plastic.
Sarat
Wow.
Chandler, Arun Gupta, what's up?
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
know these people.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, first off, one of the reasons why we're talking about this is because right now the Web5 Kotlin SDK is under development, and I thought it would be cool for our like community to have like a heads up on it. I'm curious from y'all's perspective, what have been your first like impressions of like dealing with like this particular SDK and Kotlin in general, or maybe LR since you are like into JVM, maybe this is
Mm,
not like your first time touching Kotlin. I don't know.
it is. No, it is.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
interesting.
I
Okay,
know.
from y'all, what y'all thinking?
I think it's interesting. I'm surprised to say this is the first time touching Kotlin because I mean you set up the test sheets and every other thing, and you have a extensive experience with Java, so that took me back a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Java's a cool ecosystem, and like the language is really just like one part of it, and maybe even the smallest part of it. Then there's also like the API for Java itself, and Kotlin has its own. And then the runtime itself and the build systems, it still uses Gradle. It's still, you can still use it with Maven. You can use it with anything out in the Java runtime. So that like actually made it pretty. I think it made it easier to like figure out how to set up a little bit to get started with. Java is big, yeah, and if you're like me and like went to school like learning Java, you just got used to the like longer form stuff before like more modern languages made things just a little trimmer and more convenient.
Yeah. What about you?
That sounds interesting. This is not my first time working with. This is my first time working with Kotlin. But when I was in university, I had to do Java for a year, I think. I wasn't particularly excited. I'm gonna put it out there. I barely made it through, but that's all in the past. Thank God. But yeah, Kotlin looks good. Looks way more. I'm probably reaching, but looks way more user friendly. I actually just remembered. I actually did go back to Java because I built like mobile apps, Eclipse and Android Studio like a few years ago. So I did have to learn some Java. But see, it's not even memorable for me. I just ran away from it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting from both of y'all's perspective, where like ALR is like it wasn't a big change for him because it's like a very similar ecosystem. Maybe I wonder if it's like what like Next is to like React, where like React is like very similar to, well, it's not really shorter. I don't know. I was trying to make an analogy, but it doesn't work. for me, wait, why did
that was for me.
Oh,
that was for me.
Well, I can relate with you. Let me tell y'all my first impressions. Let me tell y'all. Okay, I did Java, so I learned JavaScript first. And then I did Java, like I went back to college and I learned Java. And I was like, this thing is so wordy. Like I thought it made sense, I guess, but I'm like, I was typing so many letters just to get to like the actual like result or output. So I respect Java, but it's not always like my first like choice. I see ALR's face is like, what?
Y'all, like we're like 3 minutes into this, and here's what I want to know from you. Honestly, like I honestly want to know from you. My curiosity is peaking.
Okay.
Right? What I see in Java or any sort of type compiled language is I see stability. I want my stuff to fail fast, right? The faster I get feedback, the better I can maintain my code. And the use of a compiler to be able to be the fastest mechanism to fail, not waiting to like run something or happen to hit the code path, but to have a compiler and to be able to have like type safety to me is it's worth so much when I'm maintaining, especially enterprise level code, especially something that's going to be a long-lived project that's shared with other people. All that clarity to me is worth so much versus something like a JavaScript or a Python. So, and I know this, I know that I'm not in the majority here when modern programming languages have gotten less wordy, right? They're less verbose. But the question I have for both of you is like, why does that matter so much? Like, why does it matter so much to be tight and concise with the language versus the ability to have something that is super secure?
That's a really good question.
I think it's priority, like you said. With the compiler, I've not used a compiler in years, but with the compiler, it gives you stability, especially if I'm building enterprise risk-heavy applications. But coming from like the last few years, for example, building web applications or just getting stuff there, it's like, does it work? Can we ship it right now? How fast can you ship this? How quickly can you? Okay, the boxes aren't completely aligned. We'll make adjustment later, iterate, and all of those things. And I'm not saying they're not possible with Java, but we like interpreted languages and stuff. It's just ship first, come back and refactor later and stuff stuff like that. So it probably enabled that. But for someone that is building something, in Java, Kotlin, or any other compiler language, and trying to make sure that this is ready to go 100% before you go to market or eat your customers, then it makes absolute sense. I think that's probably the major difference from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. For me, I would say I'm a cowboy coder. So
yeah.
Similar to Ace. I'm like, oh my God, errors, who cares? Just let it go. Like sometimes I feel that way with TypeScript. I'm like, any. Like it's not good. I'm like, let's just get it out there and then I'll go back and make it better. But I agree with you. I see the benefits of like it telling me ahead of time, me not like I do think JavaScript and stuff like that can be a little bit harder to debug. With that said, I love Kotlin though. It's nice, short, sweet to the point.
This is a mature thing that's bringing it to. All right, I like it. I just want to say, look, if your argument is you don't like typing, y'all both became software engineers. Like you could have been dentists. I don't know. Like work it out with a therapist. Something. Like let's move on.
Now I have a topic to talk about in therapy. All right, that was great. No, but I think Kotlin's really good, and I don't know, Ace, you've tried out our SDK, right? I really like how easy it was to pick up with this Web5 SDK, right? Like I think it was like, oh shoot, I remember that in JavaScript. I think I like learned Kotlin over the weekend, and then on Monday I was like, all right, I'm ready to write Web5. I'm ready to create a verifiable credential or create a DID in Kotlin, and I really I wanted like tip my hat to the engineers for the SDK and whoever made Kotlin. Good job, guys. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and PSA, in case anyone missed it, that's just a way for us to also mention that we have the Web5 SDKs available in Kotlin.
Yeah.
So you can definitely check that out.
Yeah, exactly. And the documentation's coming out soon, or it's in progress. All right. Actually, I think that we just jumped in, but maybe you didn't really introduce. Did you introduce yourself?
No, he didn't.
You didn't introduce yourself.
His bio says Rizal and Ace
me?
fanboy, so he hasn't introduced himself.
No,
Yeah.
I mean that's true. Look, first I want to say this is my first Twitch ever, so I'm feeling remarkably grateful to be here, and especially with you two. I'm feeling good.
That is awesome.
What can I say? My name is Andrew Rubinger. I'm our head of open source here at TBD. It's important. TBD is an open source business unit. Everything that we do, everything that we make is open source by default. Unless there are some reasons, because we work in financial services, some things just simply can't be open source. Like I'm not actually going to give out my account numbers or be sharing like Bitcoin wallet addresses with y'all. Sorry about that. Ain't gonna happen. No, but it is important for us because there's a lot that we are doing to try and erase the biases that are inherent in the like global financial systems. So many systems, so many sources of biases are things that are just like historical corrupt, but they have disproportionate impact on the people in the world and in the types of people specifically that they're influencing. So the reason that we're open source is because we want to be changing that. We want to be breaking all of that down. And to be able to do that, we need to have a system that is built on open protocols, that is participatory. You know, in the words of our CEO, Mike Brock, like what we are building is simply not believable as a block product. This isn't something TBD can just make on its own and like make money out of. What we need to do is be encouraging interoperability. We need to be encouraging as many people to be joining this network as we can so that we can move money around the world in a much more efficient way in time and expense to welcome more people into the economy. And I will get off like the soapbox on that thing, but it is something I feel passionate about. So don't let me ramble on like why I think open finance is remarkably important for the world.
Ramble. If you ever saw me look away, I'm just checking the Discord to make sure if anyone said anything. But ramble on. I thought that was great.
Are they saying close it? Closed? Like I was like, was Jamie Dimon in there being like, I don't like what you're saying here, man.
Box Rocks loved it. He put some
Box Rocks, hey,
emoji.
That's all the validation I need, honestly.
So do you want to give us a little bit of your background getting all the way to this point at TBD?
Yeah, let me like wind it all the way back. Actually, I went to undergrad years ago, and my father called me up one day, and he's like, "Look, I've never asked anything of you in choosing like your coursework or dictating your academic career, but I'll tell you, I got a lot of clients who are software engineers, and they really seem to like it. I think you will too. Will you do me the favor of taking a software engineering course?" And I said, sure. So I showed up for my first day of like computer science 101. And Look, back when I was in school, it was a little different. There was very little distance back then in the understanding between like being a programmer and being a computer scientist. So you had to go through this like study of computer science. And I walked into class the first day, and they were like, "Hi, this is a packed room. Want to let everybody know that we're double oversubscribed here. So half of you are not going to be taking this course. And just so you know, if you're trying to fulfill one of your math requirements, because this does fulfill a math requirement, if you're trying to fulfill a math requirement, you should know this is the hardest way to do it." And like 3/4 of the people like walked out and left the room. But that I found that like I was like, "Oh, all right, that's a challenge. Let's do it." And I took,
you're like, I got this.
yeah, and I took this course, and it just wasn't enough. It was not enough. It was teaching you some of the early fundamentals and like, just looping structures and how data maps in from a high level language. You'll not be surprised to know that like our implementation language for this course was Java. So like the seed was set. And like it just by the end of it, I'm just printing stuff out to the console. So I was just already in my mind, I'm like, there's stuff that I want to build. There's the web, like we have this publishing medium that is now like for the first time in the world, again, like an open publishing medium. Anyone in the world who knows how to speak this language of the web can write applications for it and surface information. I want to learn how to do that. So I came across several tools that were massively expensive. I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of US dollars, which back when I went to school was equivalent to like hundreds of millions of dollars now. And to use these like to use these servers and to get stuff out there. And there was this one thing called JBoss, and it was free. And I was blown away. I didn't understand how it was this full enterprise thing that was going to make me like make a web server and write applications for it and host it out of my dorm room. And the whole thing was going to be free. And not only that, when I was using it, because I was trying to connect the dots between stuff I was using at school and like this enterprise server thing, there was this whole community of people that would answer questions and like just help me to do stuff. And they were helping me for free, and they were the people writing it. It was bonkers. I couldn't understand this world of like free, and I built all of these like real applications as I was getting my feet wet. And that was my introduction into both writing applications, into publishing them into the web for free so that anyone could see them, into open source where people were just helping you do stuff, I don't know, out of the goodness of their heart, but also because they knew that they wanted their project to be successful. And it turns out it worked for them, because I got so involved with it that over the next several years, I would catch bugs in the server that I was using, and I'd start contributing to it. And I would start fixing those bugs. So I was making that project better. And I actually got so good at that that eventually one of them emailed me one day and was like, "Look, you're one of our top contributors. We've got a job opening. We would love for you to come work for us. Why don't you interview?" And I did, and that was 14 years working there for quite a while, until I went to business school and they told me about this thing called money and why it's important to people's freedoms. And I thought that was important. And I had another job after business school. And by then our CEO of TBD, Mike, called and he said, "Hey, remember that money thing you learned about in business school? We should make that more open. We should make that more open. And why don't you come help us to build an open source ecosystem, a healthy, thriving open source ecosystem like you've done before, but do it here and do it in the world of money and work with the most awesome people and go on Twitch." And I said, "Let's do it."
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Definitely. I'm a huge fan of the community that comes around open source and just getting help for free, like you say. A lot of learning, a lot of opportunities, and I think that's some of the best parts about it.
Yeah, that was a really great story. I'm like, your whole journey, it makes sense. It all led to here. And I love, like, I think I love open source for the same reasons you said. Like, it's just people working together to build something cool, and like they're okay with like giving their time for it for free to just, I don't know. I'm like, where do you see that happen at? Where everyone's just like working on a project for fun and they're like, "This is so cool. I'll help you out." So
Yeah. I mean, what I love about it is just it's a game theory thing too. It's not just out of the goodness of your hearts, right?
That's
Like
true.
there are so many problems that we're like all working on in the world and in computing. And to me, like I was drawn to software engineering, so it probably means I'm like drawn to like making efficient systems. And this to me is just the most efficient system of innovation because like if if you have to like make a product, any product, there's probably so much stuff that's like a shared problem that many companies, even competitors, are working on. And you can kind of put that in a box and be like, well, if we work on the 90% of that that is a shared computing problem together, then we can focus our energy on the 10% that's important to us in differentiating and compete. So we're going to compete at the business level, but we're going to work together on the shared stuff that's just kind of like uninteresting.
So tell
Yeah.
me then,
Mhm.
what is your like what's now that you're at TBD, what's been your strategy to supporting this whole like because there's a lot of different SDKs. It's not just the Kotlin one. We have a lot of different packages. So what's been your strategy to be supporting all this and actually building this efficient system that you're passionate about?
I'll tell you. Look, we've been here. I've been here 2 years now, and I've been thinking lately that I should come up with a strategy.
You have one.
No, all right.
Stop. I thought you were gonna say I should like do a talk about my strategy or like write a
Yeah,
blog.
yeah.
You have one.
No, look, and like I'll specifically around the SDKs, I'll call out that this is like absolutely a shared strategy and also like really driven by need. Everything that we're doing here is, as Emily, our COO, will often say, like we're solving real problems for real people, and we're going to let those use cases be the driving force, right? So the thing with the emergence of the multi-language support around the SDKs is a recognition that we've got folks who are going to be consuming this in many different avenues, and we don't necessarily know all where they're coming from. Some of them are coming from a JavaScript background, right? Some of them are going to be making applications for Android. That's going to infer some sort of a JVM language in Kotlin, from JetBrains being like the most obvious choice there. Some are going to be doing for iOS. That's going to inform a choice around Swift, right? So like for each of the language implementations we're doing, they're driven back to that core principle that we have at TBD about solving real problems for real people and letting the use cases at a point in time, once we have them, dictate the thing that we do that moves us forward to the next step. Like we're not building from an ivory tower. We don't want to be doing this in isolation. And specifically around like language implementations, that's there. And the engineering team has done a remarkable job in finding convergence for that. You know, they have a suite of what we call test vectors. Test vectors map to my experience back in Java in what we call a testing compatibility kit. And what that is a testing compatibility kit, or the test vectors, is the common layer of testing through which each of these language implementations can all be proven to be at parity. If they're all being tested in the same way, then you know that they're feature complete in the same way, and they're all kind of conforming to the same spec. And I think that's a really critical component that the engineering team has recognized in making these test vectors to give uniformity and consistency across these APIs.
Love it. That was really good. I didn't come up with my thoughts or follow up any follow up from you. Ace.
Oh, cool. No, I told you I've been here 2 years. I just thought of that right now.
That was amazing. And you
Right.
said you had no strategy, but definitely you do. And I do recognize the fact that like we're so early stage. So like the strategies being developed. But I think this is like an interesting like point to be at, or interesting point to talk about, because I think a lot of times people talk about like when they get to the end, or like when they're like popular and known and everything's all laid out. But I'm like, it's cool to hear about like how are people approaching things from the early beginnings. Sorry, go ahead, Ace. You unmuted.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say it's basically the same thing you did, and I wanted to transition us into the Kotlin snippets or anything we want to show that way before we start to wrap up, because we could go on and on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I had one question before that. I talk a lot. I'm so sorry, Ace. I did have one question about. I think you started talking about like the test vectors and stuff like that, and I just wanted to know like a little bit about your perspective on like testing documentation, which like this has really been my first time having to do that because when I was in DevRel, we
Yeah.
had a documentation team, so I didn't have to worry about that. Or any engineering team I've been on, I never had to worry about that. So it's really
Mhm.
interesting to see that. So I'm curious about like your thoughts around that, and then we transition into what Ace said.
Great. Oh, look. Okay. So I developed again, like I like things very structured, right? Like I do. I think testing to me is the thing that guards engineering discipline and rigor. If you've got something tested, it does like a couple of things. One, it helps to like clarify your thinking around how this thing is actually going to be used. It's totally easy. It's totally easy to write an API, right? With no real idea how anyone is going to consume that and use it. And tests are the things that force you to be in the user mindset and form a really nice feedback loop for you writing better code, first of all, right? And secondly, it protects you from what you're delivering and making sure that it's working as advertised. And if you write automated tests, those things live evergreen and you know that something is going to break. It's the thing that gives you confidence to make changes. So with a sufficiently tested code base, I feel free as I want to change basically anything that I want, knowing that those tests, unless I've touched them, are going to guard against this thing working as it was before. Um, so to me, they're like critically important to the process. And something that I really love is that Angie, who is our head of the developer programs group and the developer relations team, um, also comes from a testing background. And I think there's this tendency from a lot of engineers to think, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. I've got to get these features done. We simply don't have the time to invest in tests. And it's a wild argument to me because over a long enough time horizon, if you're writing professional code, the time that you care about is the time that you save. Like any time you're spending writing a test is time I expect to save like 10 times over at a later point in time. So and again, because it informs the design decisions you make when you're writing the code itself. So like virtually no time constraints am I ever under where I'm like willing to say, I don't have time to test this. And with that like shared perspective throughout the developer relations team, that makes it really easy for the three of us and others on the team to look at each other in the eye and say like, okay, we're the last stop before the world is consuming this. Probably the first thing they're going to go is read guides that you two have written. And those guides have code snippets in them. So it's vitally important that we build a documentation experience that makes sure that what we're saying on the page is true. So how do we find a way to make a system that when it surfaces that code is actually treating that code as an executable unit and testing it. And when there are upgrades or changes, we bring those in and we see what's changed and we can either fix it in the code because something's changed or not. And that's like really the reason why we do that. And it was something we wanted to do from the very, very beginning. And over the past year, really we're able to like put that into play thanks to the implementations that Nick has done, thanks to the work that you two have put in with the others on the DevRel team to write the code in that way. And because we've all adopted that mindset, it all works. And like, if I'm being honest, I said in our Discord chat yesterday, like, let's recognize what a mature documentation, that's a very mature user experience and documentation experience for a project at any phase. And we're still like pre 1.0 on TV decks. So like flowers all around and it's only going to get better, which is what I think.
Yeah. It was definitely a perspective change for me because up to this point, I think this is probably the first time I'd have to officially, as part of, day-to-day write tests for the code I'm writing, either for documentation or even just deployment, because it's like, oh, someone else will get to that. Someone else will check that out. Or, oh, it's working and stuff like that. But it totally makes sense because, like Angie would say, this is the first line of entry for any developer that wants to learn about these things. So we need to make sure that whoever comes and tries out this code, the code is definitely working. You don't want to have zero trust, zero faith in the code, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'll go to Discord to ask. It's like when you check out the documentation, you are guaranteed that this works. And I think that is just amazing to think about it that way.
Yeah, it's like bleeding edge stuff. It's funny we're in this position because we've been doing this for a bit, but I'm curious how that hit you when we first kind of started talking about it and rolling it out. The idea that you were going to be writing docs, but also that like, well, no, now you got to write code behind it and tests for it. Like, what was your first instinct when we kind of like were going through that?
Do you want to go, Risa? Okay.
I was gonna say for me, a mixture of excitement and fear. Because I was like, oh my God, I've never written docs or
I'm about to get
tests.
exposed.
Yeah. But as I went through it, I was like, wow, first of all, it's not hard. Like you were saying, ALR, a lot of times, especially really early on when I became an engineer, I wouldn't like estimate my tickets really well of how long I would have for testing. And then I'd be like, oh man, I don't have time to test it. And then my team would be like, that's all right, just ship it. So I kind of got used to that. But I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, I really should have been testing my code more often.
Mhm.
Yeah, for me, it was more like, okay, something new to learn. I guess after this, I'll be able to say I can write tests. So there was that thought right at the back of my mind. But there's also, okay, this is the first time you're doing this. What is the process? What do I need to look for? Do I need to learn the tool? And it starts getting a bit overwhelming because I just start ask myself way too many questions because I like to understand like the full picture. So, okay, this is how everything is connected. Okay, this is how I write the test. So even if I can see, oh, this is the step you go with, but I have no idea what's happening, I start coming up with different explanations in my mind. And I can spend 10 hours thinking about it when the test is just, 30 minutes to write. So I try as much as possible to avoid that. But it was definitely, something to say, okay, we're about to learn something new and see how we can write tests across board. And I mean, yourself, Nick, Leo, everyone else on the open source team was like, we've created these resources. Like, it doesn't make any sense for me not to try when you've all worked so hard to provide, oh, this is the flow you need to follow and this is how it works. Like, it just made sense. And I was really excited about it. Yeah.
That's the other thing I would say. ALR's team with Leo and Nick, y'all made it
Yeah.
easy. It's really not hard to write a test because y'all put all the systems in place.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nick, I had designed like a much more just a much heavier thing as I was like first thinking about it when Nick and I were going over this, and he wrote the like testing docs integration piece in a way that was just like brilliant. It was just really simple, kind of like almost like a Linux or a Unix command, right? Like it does one thing and it does it well, and it's like so adaptable and like such a slimmer approach to it. It's just text replacement, right? And you run that thing and it just works. And then it ended up, we started adding language support for other languages and stuff. And this component like took one look at it and was like, don't care, just text to me. Like, I don't need to know anything about this. Just, right, like give me a beginning and an end, and I'm gonna grab that thing and shove it into the docs. Like, brilliant approach he took, I think, there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And to circle back to the question Ace had asked earlier, what you got to show us on your screen, or if anything, because I know you have your screen share right now.
Oh yeah, I do. Why don't could you tell me like where you want to go with this today and kind of guide me a little bit? Because
Ooh.
there's my screen.
Yeah. I guess you can. It looks like you were gonna show us how. Well,
let's talk. Can we talk through this? Just this, right?
yeah,
One
that's what I was
moment.
gonna say. Yeah. You could show us how you set this up and all that. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Okay. So before, like, this is actually a really nice segue. We've been talking about testing and we've been talking about testing docs, right? So we knew that we wanted to add in. We've got a whole bunch of docs already tested for JavaScript, and we know that we have the emergence of the Kotlin implementation coming out too, and we want to document that as well, right? So Rizal, you'd written a guide, right? And like, we asked you just kind of for an example of something that is going to be written, and you showed us a guide. And in that guide, because we didn't yet have test suite support for Kotlin, you had like one of these examples that we pulled, and it was an example of using a signed verifiable credential and getting a VC from it. Like if you have a JWT, how do you get a VC from it? It's 2 lines of code. And you would hardline that, or you would hard coded that like straight into the docs, because we needed to, because we didn't yet have a test suite to support it. Great. So then the mission becomes really clear. We just have to externalize the thing that you've written from docs. We've got to put that into something that's executable. And then we've got to, like, you know, tag that thing a little bit so that we can pull out the stuff from the executable tested thing and inject it back into the docs. And that's all you see here. You had 2 lines of code. You explained them in 2 different sections. You started users off with this long string of a signed verifiable credential on the top, and you kind of showed them what that looked like. And then let's take a look here. There's this guy right here, which is the function that we're going to be documenting. And I said, like, all right, great. Let's see if we can get this thing end to end. So
do you want to zoom in one level? Sorry, Andrew, just one level.
You know what? Gosh, who remembers in IntelliJ how to do that? Anyone?
There's like a view
I should be able
button.
to do Command Plus, maybe.
Oh, you can't.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was not Command Plus. Oh wait.
If you go to View and then there's increase font size in all editors. I literally was trying to stream myself writing on IntelliJ the other day, and I struggled.
Yeah. How's this? Any better?
Yeah, that's much better.
All right.
You said settings. I don't know IntelliJ good enough.
So in this thing that we were just kind of talking about, right? We said, like, all, you know, in Nick's system, like, all you need to do is kind of like tag it in the beginning and the end. That's what the system does. We define like a start and an end to like this thing we call a snippet. We give it a name, right? And I've done that twice here because you're going to put it in different spots. And then when the snippet system runs, it's going to like take these things, it's going to dump them into some, like, a set of snippets where they can be referenced by name. And in the docs, instead of writing them directly in the docs, you're just going to call that reference and it's going to pull this thing in. And these tests right here, we put straight into the developer site. Everything in the developer site is open source. You can actually see how that thing is built. And when you run it, we can just kind of even do that right here in the IDE and go like, let's run this test. And it'll do its thing. And you get your green check mark and you know that it works.
Easy.
Like, one other thing about testing, look, I think it's also important to testing to me is not homework. It's not an extra thing. It's not a thing that slows you down. I think, like, solving around people's dopamine, this is something we talk about on the team a lot, right? Like, solving around dopamine, giving people like enjoyment. And it turns out that, like, when I first started getting involved in like I made a test platform with some friends over at JBoss in my time there, right? And we started going around and touring, and we found that, like, we'd walk into Java 1 and we'd be like, no one's going to attend this talk. It's about testing. Like, no one's going to care. This is the eat your vegetables session. And we came to the realization that if we like flipped the narrative away from like, here's how to do testing and do your homework better, into one of like, here's how you get a green check. Here's how you get the satisfaction of having built something and seeing it work. And as you keep on going, the more tests you write, the more green checks you get. It's fun to watch them all like go off, and like it's great. And we start reframing the conversation around that, and that's almost like half the fun of programming to me, is to like just lay out how many tests can I write, just see that thing all go. So we put all this in place. I'll say that, like, this whole thing lives in the developer site repository and is itself like its own project. Like, we needed to fire up a Kotlin runtime. And the way that we bootstrapped that was to run it as a Maven build. Maven is a build system very popular in the Java ecosystem, and it comes with its own layout. Like, Maven is a very convention over configuration type of a build tool. So we laid out like a Maven project structure and set that up. It's defined in something called a POM, a project object model.
That's what it stands for. Did not know.
Project object project something. It's been a long time.
Sounds great.
Honestly. Like, at some point, yeah, you'd have to look it up. And you know, this is where you do things like declare your dependencies and like this. I'll admit the like Maven POM format is a bit of a verbose thing, but once you get it going, you can then run those things right in the IDE, or you can do as we do in, you know, in any Maven project, where if I want to like build something in any Maven based project, it's always like Maven clean verify, and that'll fire off the whole life cycle there and build it, like, you know, compile it and build it and run the tests, and you get a build success and you're done. And that's how we plugged it in. So like this thing kind of runs, it's its own standalone runtime that we've hooked into the site build life cycle. When we build the site itself has a test life cycle, and we call this mini life cycle for the Kotlin stuff as part of it. And that's what we're going to do for each of the languages. Each of the languages is going to have its own kind of thing. I mean, I can give you a cheat if you want. Let's take a look for a second. Like we've hooked that into the site life cycle. So if I say test the Kotlin tests,
oh,
we want to run those, you'll see that like it fires up Maven and runs the Kotlin tests. And if we say let's run the Swift tests, it's going to look a little bit different because it's firing up the Swift environment. It's going to be compiling things, and it's going to be like doing it in Swift world. This one, I think the first time you run it for the day, takes a moment to boot up, but it'll go.
This is awesome though. Our first time
Yeah.
showing anything with
Oh
Swift.
yeah. I mean, I've had some fun over the past couple of days, right? So this is what it looks like in a Swift output, and you can do the same with Rust.
Wow.
Not saying even that like we really know necessarily which like language support we're going to be doing in these SDKs, but I was in a way like after getting Kotlin in, like really eager to prove out how we can get a whole bunch of runtimes to like live together in one big project and tie them into the same life cycle, and see how we can like marry the thing where each language has its own ecosystem and its way of doing things. So you have to respect that, while at the same time giving us the uniformity of like a PNPM command that we use for the site, and hook it into the life cycle.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah, hand claps to you and your team for setting up all of the structure. I'm like, this is really amazing to just have in place ahead of time. And I don't know, maybe you're like me. I'm like excited to try out all these languages. Like I think that's why I jumped into Kotlin so fast. I was like, oh, a new language. So I'm excited for Swift and whatever else comes next. All right, so we reached the 45-minute mark. I think it's time for me to ask some non-technical fun questions, and then we wrap up. I don't think you have any preparation since we asked you last minute. But first question, what's your favorite food?
Oh, this to me?
Yes. Me and Ace have gone through our favorite food so much that we're
Yeah.
like our third.
Would you share yours with me while I stall? Like think about
Yeah, mine was jollof rice.
Yeah. And mine
I had it for lunch today. Sorry, Riza.
Oh, you did? No, sorry. That was my fault. You weren't done. You had it for lunch. Lucky. I didn't eat it. Mine was this thing called roti, which is every Caribbean person. Had you eaten that, right? Or no? When you said oh nice, it sounded like you eaten it.
Like roti, like Indian roti?
Yeah, but like Caribbean roti. But yeah.
Oh, Caribbean.
It's similar, but I guess a little different. Or it's a particular type of Indian roti. It's like paratha roti. That's what Indian people call it. Whereas like the one that I think most people have eaten is like naan. But yeah, like I like it. You put like split peas inside of it. You put like potatoes and vegetables. And if you like, I don't eat meat, but some people put like chicken, curry goat, all that stuff.
I gotta look this up and where to find it. I live in Los Angeles now, so like I've got to be able to like find this. There's someone here who's a Caribbean.
Yeah, make sure a Trinidadian like
Mhm.
making it or a Guyanese person. The other people, I don't trust it. Yeah, I did say roti.
Mhm.
So your turn. Your turn.
Oh, that's right. That Nick did get me. He got me Caribbean food in Miami. That's totally true.
So you eat one.
Yeah, he came back. Yeah, he's like, I can't make dinner with you tonight, but I'm gonna like you go have dinner, and I'm gonna go out with my family. I'm gonna bring you some second dinner. And then he brought dinner to my like where I was still sitting down. It was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, he
That's
went
so
to a Trini place, and it was delicious.
good.
That's amazing. But look, my favorite food comfort to me when I like think of that. So there's an Italian restaurant in my hometown of Framingham, Massachusetts, called La Cantina. They have chicken parmesan. I don't know if this is like the best chicken parmesan in the world, but I do know that at least by my memory, it's been unchanged since I was like 4 years old. It's like one of the most comforting things to eat. That, as well as my mother's Jewish style brisket, which is something that I have like learned to make in the past couple of years. And like these to me are the like, just there's something about it that like, gosh, like just takes you back to that place, and that's I find very comforting.
I love comfort food.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is if you could have a super. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
If you
I
could
was
have.
gonna share. Sorry, I was just gonna give a shout out and share like this message from Jawasabi. Having conversations like this, we have streams with different people every other week, and it's amazing to see this as well. Thank you for joining. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope it's been informative so far. So sorry, go ahead. I just needed to shout that out.
That was a good
Yeah,
call
that's good.
out. Yeah. Stop by every Friday at 12 ET. What was the other question? Oh, if you could be a superhero. No, not if you could
What
be a
superpower would you like to have?
superpower. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
could have a
Look,
superpower, what would you like?
this one's easy. I think about this one all the time. It's embarrassing. Flight, 100% flight. Like
What
we
about
grew up like
teleportation though?
watching Superman, 100% flight.
Why would you need to fly if you can teleport?
Well, Ace, do you care about getting there, or do you care about the journey, man? Like you gotta stop and smell the
If you
roses
care
a
so
little
much
bit, my
about the
friend.
journey, then you take a plane. But yeah, flight is
Yeah.
amazing. Flight is amazing. No airports, no passports. So
Yeah.
In the Discord, Chris Giglio said objectively the right answer to you.
Chris and I
Awesome.
were on a level.
Last but not least,
Yeah.
but most important question is, and you have no preparation, so I'm so sorry. What is your favorite Beyonce song?
Wow. I mean, I gotta rack my brains for like. I mean, this is a woman with like 2 decades of hits that like
Yeah.
at any point in time were like, um,
You could Google if you want.
like I'm like going back to like Destiny's Child too. Like what has she done? It's like super moved me. You know what? I'm like it's gonna be the standard answer, is gonna be stock, but like it was so much fun when it came out with Single Ladies, when like it came out and there was the dance and there was like the SNL sketch, and then I was like there's in my mind there's like a whole like there's like a whole world of like unifying stuff just around Single Ladies, which I understand is not like it's not Lemonade, right? It's not like the Grammy winning thing, right? But like I think it like that was so pervasive throughout like different cultures and was like so like everywhere that like it stands out to me as I think my favorite Beyonce contribution outside of Destiny's Child.
That was a fun one. That was a
It was
fun
fun.
one. And Jawasabi said, not you putting him on the spot.
Yeah.
Listen, it's an equal opportunity. Everybody that gets on the stream gets put on the spot with this question.
Yeah.
Comfortable, and then I drop you in with that question.
No, that's a good. It would have taken me. I would have talked for like 3 hours if you had asked me about her husband too, because I would have had to like really like a favorite. I don't know. Let's start from the beginning, folks. So,
Good one.
I like that one feature he did with Kanye one time on
Oh yeah.
College Dropout.
He did a lot. I think he did like Otis or something like that with him too. Okay, but we could wrap up. You guys, either of you have any last words, any last things you want to say, and then we head out.
Yeah. I just wanted to give a shout out to Andrew. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for educating and sharing all this experience with us and the audience today. This was amazing. Learned a lot.
Oh man.
Shout out to everyone that stopped by as well. Angie, Jawasabi, Nick, hello. everybody in chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for stopping by. This has been another fun episode, informative episode. And like Angie would say,
so much fun.
Yeah, like Angie would say, thank you for joining our reality show, reality TV show. So yeah.
No, and thank you for getting me out on Twitch for the first time ever. That is awesome. And my shout out today is gonna go to Nick. He and I paired a lot this week to like roll out a lot of the things that we looked at, and like
Awesome.
You just see it's like it's slim, it's good, it's fun, and I'm glad that we didn't live stream that stuff because it was principally he and I just sitting on a call screaming obscenities about why it couldn't find a file path that we got wrong. Like, don't look at how the sausage is made, folks. Just look at how it ended up.
Yeah, gotcha.
Sounds like my live streams. Well, I'll echo Ace and just say thank you to you for joining us, ALR, because it was a little last minute. Like we were like, we got to pivot, and I think it was really good and informative. And thank you to the people in the chat. Y'all made it fun too with the great comments. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's great. It's like when a talk show host like has to like they have a guest cancel and they have to like pull like the newscaster because they're in the building. Like it's like they're not the best guest, but like they are there that day anyway, you know, like
oh my goodness.
You were great. It was like it was better than I even expected. Really informative.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye everyone and see you next week at 12. We're gonna have Density on. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.